Okay, so welcome to day 2 of the scoliosis exercises. Today we're going to go through some of the same stuff we did yesterday, and I reviewed the video from yesterday and I realized that it was backwards. So a lot of you guys mentioned that the left was the right and the right was the left. So I flipped the camera around. I'm using my iPad, so hopefully this time it's all going to be the right way around. However, I've got some diagrams to share with you, so it should all work out. All right, the first thing we're going to do is go through those cogs again, those forwards, backwards, those side to side, those rotation cogs. Start warming up the spine. All right, if you're up against the wall, try and get your butt against the wall. You can have your heels, about 6 inches away from the wall. Get your butt against the wall, get your mid back against the wall, and try and get your head against the wall, okay? So that's going to start to straighten your spine. Then you're going to take your thumbs and point them backwards and bring the shoulder blades in together. As you do that, your lower back will naturally arch and stick your butt out, okay? So I want you into this position, this hyper-exaggerated, tall, straight position. All right, then you're going to take your hands inwards and point your thumbs backwards and allow your back to round, your pelvis to tuck underneath, and your chin to jut out. That's perfect. Now we're going to take up the pace a little bit. Maybe breathe in here. That's it, and then breathe out on this one. Good, we're going to do about 10 of these. Good, just keep going, get that movement in there, make sure your butt goes back as you straighten up. Good, really pull those shoulder blades in together, keep going. Okay, that's 6. 7, good, nice deep breaths. Good, last one. Excellent. Okay, so some of you might feel a little bit stiff depending on what time zone you're in. Here it's 7:30. We've got up, had some breakfast, but that's the first bit of movement my spine has done. So in between my shoulder blades, I feel that a little bit stiff. And that's normal, that's great. That's just getting it moving, okay? Now we want to go for the side-to-side movement like this. So yesterday we were going with one leg forward, but today we're going to keep your feet together. I want you to put your hands on your hips like you're going to do some salsa dancing. And you're going to drop one hip down. So this leg is straight, this one is bent. You can just mirror me. All right, then come back up. Nice. Now try and keep your head completely still, like it is, like it's got a book on it. That's great. Just keep going with this. Keep going. Okay, you keep going. I'm just going to step off the camera for a second, but you keep going. Perfect. Keep going. Hey Bob, how you doing? I just want to check who was watching. All right, so you got the hips moving here. Okay, now what we're going to do is when you bend this leg here and you push your hips out like this, you're actually going to take this hand up. So we're stretching this side, shortening this side, then you're going to come back. Nice. So we're getting this, it's called the frontal plane, the side-to-side movement in the spine. If you had X-ray vision, you would see my spine bending similar to how it does in scoliosis. But what we're doing here is we're saying to your scoliosis, we're saying, hey, you don't have to be stuck in that position. We're going to move you in and out of that position. So if you look from the side, it's like this. So this hip's up, so my spine is bending here. I'm getting some really good movement, both from what we call the bottom up, from my pelvis up into my spine, and from the top down, from my arms down into the top part of my spine. Okay, if you find this painful or irritates you, just step back to this one. No problems, okay? Just get those hips moving. Nice. All right, so the pelvis is the seat of the spine. It's the foundation of the spine. So any tightness in the pelvis or any imbalance in those hips can affect the spine, right? We're going to take 10,000 steps a day. And so if, for example, I can't step forward so well with this leg because of a problem in my foot or ankle or something, then that rotation, that faulty twist is going to go into my spine 10,000 times. Or so you can see how a problem anywhere below your spine can actually affect your spine. So that's why we're going to concentrate a little bit on the hips today. Okay, the last one was the rotations. So again, we're going to keep the feet together. I just want you to see if you can twist your hips. So keep your shoulders still. And I'm twisting this way. So I'm not going back and forth, I'm just going one way. Now you'll notice my foot kind of comes up a little bit, that's great. I don't want you to sort of bail out onto the outside of your foot. See if you can keep your big toe down onto the ground, okay? You can put your hands on your chest if you want as well. All right, let's go the other way. And what we're doing here is we're reconnecting the brain to these areas of the spine, okay? Some people find this really difficult. They're like, how do I keep my toe down whilst I move my hips? And that's okay if that's you, because this is probably the first time you've done something like this. And we're reconnecting those little messengers, those little kind of telegraph poles and wires between the muscles in your pelvis, the muscles in your abdominal area, and reconnecting them to your brain. Especially if you've got pain, we're trying to say to the brain, hey, these movements can happen without pain. All right, now we want to hold your hips still, and you're going to move your upper body whilst keeping your head looking directly forward. So pick a dot on the wall and just hold your vision on that dot on the wall, okay? And you might feel something happening up into your neck here. This is actually mobilizing and stretching your neck. And then the other way. But really, it's mobilizing and stretching your thorax. So the majority of people with a scoliosis have an idiopathic scoliosis, which is commonly a reverse S shape. And so this movement here, for example, will be mobilizing the thorax where that S curve is in this, or the upper curve is. That's right. All right, now we're going to try and do two things, okay? We're going to rotate the thorax, but then rotate the pelvis the opposite way. So let's see if we can get both moving at the same time. That's a little bit difficult even for me. All right. Or you can fix the thorax and then move the pelvis underneath it. That's fine, it's up to you. But I'm rotating my thorax this way, and I'm rotating my pelvis this way, okay? It doesn't go very far. The lumbar spine does not have much rotation in it. And that's why you don't commonly have a big kind of hump in the lumbar spine, because it doesn't have much rotation to give. Okay, we're going to do another 5 here. That's 1, 2, 3, that's good, 4, 5. Now we're going to go the other side. So we're going to rotate this way. I'm going to rotate this way, and my pelvis is going the opposite. Good. Good. I'm going to do 10 in total, okay? Again, if you feel pain, you back off the speed, you back off the distance, and you back off the reps, and hopefully that pain will disappear. So I'm finding this side a little harder for me. I do have a slight scoliosis in my lumbar spine, and I have a very small rotation up in my thoracic spine. So because there's a rotation there, it may be harder for me to rotate my thorax one way. So you'll find that as well. All right, perfect. So we've done the 3 movements of bending forwards and backwards, side to side, and rotation, all the different levels of the spine. This is perfect. Now we're going to get into the hips. One of the movements that we need in the pelvis is for our pelvis to be able to slide across the hip like this. So I could either take this foot like this to get that angle here, or I could actually slide my pelvis across. So what I want you to do is this. I want you to find a wall. You can have your wall on one side, and you're going to slide your pelvis to touch that wall. Okay? So I'm lifting up my outside foot. So I'm lifting up, in this case, my left foot, and I'm just letting my pelvis go towards the wall like this. And I want to see how far away I can move this foot from the wall. We're still getting my pelvis to touch the wall whilst keeping my toe on the ground, okay? So if you can see this, if my toe comes off like this, that's too far. So I'm here, it's good. And with the hand here, I'm just kind of holding. So there's no way I'm going to get to the wall when I'm this far away, like a huge distance. So I'll be around here. Okay, so that's kind of my limit. You should be feeling a stretch in the outside of your hip. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take that mark, put a mark in the carpet or the mat, whatever you're doing, and or doing it on. And then you're going to go to the other side, give it a few goes, but you're going to see whether or not your other side touches without your toe coming off the ground, or if there's a huge difference in the sensation. So for me, there's a big difference between the left and the right. My left one just does not want to go as far as my right one does. So once you've found which side feels different, which side moves different, which side is tighter, I want you to go back to that side, and then you're going to push your hip towards the wall and back, towards the wall and back. And we're going to start actually mobilizing that hip, that tighter hip. Right, so this is a pure, what we call frontal plane movement. I'm just going left and right. But now I want you to imagine, a semicircle, a half circle like this, or a crescent moon, or whatever you want to call it. And you're going to move your hip backwards and forwards. So at the apex there, it's trying to hit the wall. But other than that, you're moving it forwards and backwards. You're getting a little pelvic translation, we call it, forwards, little pelvic translation backwards. But at the same time, you're working all those muscles of the hip. So it's looking like this. My pelvis is going forwards into the side and back into the side through that half circle. And I'm feeling stuff all over my hip. I'm feeling little clicks and flips. That's fine. What that is the thing called the IT band down the side. It's just flicking over this big bit of bone here. Don't worry about that. All the time I'm trying to keep my toe down into the ground here. Good. All right, so now we go back to this movement and things should feel a lot freer because they're more equal both sides. There's no reason you can't do that stretch both sides. I just want to focus on the tighter one. Okay, so that's the side of the hips warmed up, which is really helping our spine. Now we're going to go for the front of the hips. So I've got a yoga mat here, but my knees are a little sensitive, so I get a little padded mat as well. So grab yourself a cushion or something like that, throw it under your knee if you need it. If you don't, just go on the floor. And I want you to be in a straight line from your shoulder, hip and knee. And the other leg's going to come out at 90 degrees and be bent at the knee at 90 degrees. Okay, so I'm nice and straight. Then what I want you to do is you're going to tense this butt muscle here ever so slightly. You tense it and your pelvis should tuck underneath. So you're going to hold a little bit of a tuck. Then you're going to slide your whole pelvis forward. Now, what isn't happening is my ribs and my pelvis here are not coming apart. That's just going to dump into my lower back and cause what we call hyperextension. So I'm preventing that by tucking my pelvis, keeping my hips here and my ribs together, and I'm sliding the whole thing forwards and backwards. Not doing this, just doing this. And you'll find you cannot go very far like this. But for those of you who cannot get your knee behind your hip joint and behind your shoulder joint, that's a problem, okay? So this is something we look for in the program, is how far can your knee go forwards. If you're stuck here, we need to loosen up the front of your hip. All those muscles, the psoas, the iliacus, the rectus femoris, all those muscles at the front of the hip need to be loosened up. Okay, when we're in this position, if you have a common reverse S-curve scoliosis and your right knee is forward, okay, take your left hand just over your head and your right hand forwards like this. And now what we've got is a top-down stretch correction plus a bottom-up kind of movement correction to the pelvis. We're working the pelvis forwards and backwards in what we call the sagittal plane. No problems here. But now we're going to go forwards. Go as far forward as you can, then back off just a little bit, and then wiggle your hips left and right. This is a coordination thing. You can move these hands if you need to, no problems. All right, you're just going to go left and right, and you're going to feel some different things around the inside and the outside of your hips. Okay, once you've done about 10 movements left and right here, I want you to imagine your pelvis is a steering wheel and you're going to rotate that pelvis forwards and backwards. The same thing, you go forwards, back off the stretch just a little bit, and then rotate forwards and backwards. Now if you have a C shape or an S shape in your thorax, this arm up here can start to correct that movement from the top down. Okay, keep going with this, just moving that pelvis left and right. Trying to keep your shoulders relatively still. That's it. Good. All right. Stand up. We're going to do the other side. I'll give you a second just to get into the right position. How's everyone doing? Cool. All right. So the other side, in my case, my right knee is backwards. 90 degrees through here, everything's stacked. Shoulders, hips, knees, all stacked. Tucking the pelvis just a little bit, tensing my right butt cheek. Moving forwards, getting a little stretch through here. And for me, this is still the morning, so I haven't got much flexibility, but I can still get that knee behind the pelvis. That's the important thing. It's when you're stuck here and nothing happens, or even worse, if you're back here and your hip is flexed, then that's a real telltale sign that this needs to be worked out, okay? So you're tucking your pelvis, keeping your pelvis at the front and your ribs so they're not extending away from each other. And then if you have it would be a standard S curve or a thoracic C-shaped curve with the apex on the left. In my case, you put your hand up against the wall here. You take this one forward to correct the rib hump. Now, if you don't have those, or if you don't want to do that, just put one hand against the wall for a little bit of balance. Cool. So you're going forwards and backwards. You're feeling a big stretch the front of your pelvis here. Then we're going to go forwards, get that stretch on, backwards just a little bit. You back off it. Then you're going to move left and right. And we're going to do 10 of these. That's right. So I'm counting one movement as going left and right. All the time pushing your pelvis forward because your hips will want to come back like this, and it's a sneaky little thing the body does. It tries to undo that stretch. So consciously tensing this butt, pushing your pelvis forward. Okay, and then finish there. And lastly, steering wheel. So I'm driving this knee towards that wall over here, and I'm going like this. 1, and then pulling it back. 2, that's it. 3, good. I'm going to put a hand on the wall for some balance because it really makes a difference. When the body feels safe, it actually stretches and allows you to move more. If it feels like you're going to fall over, subconsciously you just can't do some of the things that you want to do because the mind or the brain won't let you. So simply putting a hand against the wall can make a huge difference. Okay, kind of lost count. Let's do a couple more. Perfect. Okay, good. Coming out of here. All right, so now we want to talk about getting into your scoliosis. So this is the standard scoliosis. I hope we're back to front to back, front to back, back to front. Let's just have a look. All right, should be. All right, this is on the right. Can someone tell me if this side is on the right? On the comments. And then this should be on the left. Is that how you guys are seeing it? Let's have a look. I think so. All right, cool. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take this arm up and over to open up this side here, like these arrows. We're going to open this up. Then we're going to take this leg down and across this way to open up these arrows. So these are corrections in the frontal plane. And this is a classic reverse S curve. The right side is here, the left side is here. Perfect. Thank you, Christina. All right, so the first thing we're going to do, let me see if I can put this somewhere where you can see it, is you're going to take your right hand, reach towards the wall, and then you're going to take your left hand on the side of your head and lean to the right. So you're opening up that space on the left hand thorax. That's good. And with the right hand, you've taken those ribs forwards. All right, we don't want too much movement going into your pelvis here. So lock down, tense your butt muscles, tense your hips, lock that pelvis down, try and isolate the movement through here. I like to imagine that I have an axis going through my spine. So it's like a big pole going through here, and that is what I am turning on. I'm turning on this pole. So it's not going down here, it's staying up in here. Perfect. All right, we're going to do something sneaky here. If we put a lift underneath this side, we're actually going to start the process of correcting this lumbar curve here. So that pillow you had before for your knees, I want you to put it underneath your left side here, and then that will start to correct the lower curve as you do this movement like this. Perfect. And I really like the movement to go from the head, like each vertebra, tick, 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 down to the middle of that thoracic curve. So that's why it's kind of important for you to understand where your curves are, sometimes have an x-ray, so that you can visualize how far you need to go down. All right, perfect. Now we're going to go bottom up. We're going to take this leg down. Now, we're actually already in that position. If you think about it, your pelvis is already dropped. So we could put this hand up, reaching up here to correct that curve from the top. We could take this hand across to start pulling that ribs forward. And then we can actually just lift up and drop down. So this is actually tensing a little bit, making the curve worse. but then dropping down. Okay, so that's a nice start in the lower back, especially if you have lower back pain. So I'm just going to turn around and show you what that looks like. So I'm correcting a little bit from above, a little bit from below, and then I'm just getting that lower back to get used to that movement, pumping those little joints, they're called the facet joints, getting the disc working. Now, if you've got some arthritis and irritation in your lower back, this might be all you can do, which is great. But if you want to do a little bit more, you're going to do the same thing with your hands. Take your left hand up, right hand across, and then just drop this right leg all the way across like this. Now, if you have the opposite type curve in your lower back, you just be doing the opposite, all right? So I've got my lefts and rights working today, so you will be just doing the opposite of this. If you have the opposite curve, you would just be doing the opposite. All right, you should be feeling a little bit of work now into your lower back, really stretching through here. Perfect, okay. Good, so those are the scoliosis specific corrections for that reverse S curve in the frontal plane and a little bit in the transverse plane, the rotation plane. Obviously there's more to do, but what I'm doing with these Facebook Lives is giving your body the foundation for the movement. So working through each plane of movement in the spine to get it ready to accept any changes here. Now, we did a lot on the pelvis today because if your pelvis is tight, like I mentioned earlier, and you can't walk correctly, then we're doing all this stuff in the spine, but it's going to be undone as soon as you go for a walk or you start moving around. So you've got to think of your body as the feet as the foundation coming up to the pelvis, the foundation of the spine, and start correcting any imbalances there really before or at the same time you start working your spine. Because if you've got something really off in the pelvis, it's going to negate the work that you're doing in your back. All right, guys, so tune in tomorrow. I can't give you all the time zones, but they'll be on the Facebook, 7:30 my time, which is Nicaraguan time. And yeah, see you tomorrow. We're going to add a little bit to this, and we'll go through something similar as a warm-up beforehand to get to it. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you later. Oh, hang on, I got to press stop, haven't I?